Alright people, I can't be the only person who saw Lawrence Fishburne's character in this movie and immediately thought of the Pigeon Man from Hey Arnold. Anybody? Bueller? So John Wick Chapter 2 is the sequel to the surprise smash hit in 2014, John Wick, which reintroduced us to the badass in Keanu Reeves. John Wick Chapter 2 takes place shortly after the events of the first film, where an Italian crime lord comes up to John Wick, who he is owed a blood debt to for helping him get out of the world of assassins, and he expects him to fulfill that blood debt. So John Wick gets ripped right back out of retirement to do one last hit, and then from then on, things get very complicated. What John Wick did so amazingly and why it was such a huge success is because it had a very simple setup that led to a bunch of mind-blowing action scenes. Now what John Wick Chapter 2 does is has another fairly simple setup that leads to a lot of mind-blowing action scenes, all the while really fleshing out the world of John Wick, adding to the lore, adding to the world building of the Continental and the secret society of assassins that live among us in plain sight. Now the first question everybody's going to ask about John Wick Chapter 2 is, does the action deliver? And yes, the action delivers. I would even go as far to say the action scenes in John Wick Chapter 2 might even surpass the first one. As amazing as that first one was, as soon as the action starts in John Wick Chapter 2, it is literally from the start to the end of the movie like a 45, 50-minute long action scene. In the first film, he was mainly just fighting cannon fodder. It was a bunch of henchmen, it was a bunch of people that he was just shooting the head, pop them in the chest, and just go through about 200 people in a minute. And he does that in this movie too, probably kills about 500 or 600 people in this movie. But there's also scenes where he's fighting other assassins, which leads to a lot of really good hand-to-hand combat, a lot of knife fighting, a lot of close-quarter stuff that we didn't get to see too much of in the first film, so we also get that side of action scene in this movie. Quick tangent, if you like all the gun fu and the gun kata and everything that they do in this movie, check out Equilibrium. Very underrated sci-fi action movie. Okay, plug over. Now aside from all the mind-blowing action choreography, probably the most fascinating element of the John Wick world is the Continental. This is a sanctuary, full-service hotel for assassins where they literally are provided with every single thing they would possibly need to complete their assignments, all the while are not allowed to conduct any business on the Continental grounds. It was just a small little nugget of the first film, and I always was wondering, I want to see a movie where they expand that. And I got it in John Wick Chapter 2 because they really flesh out the rules, the world, and the lore of the Continental, and they show you where these things came from, where the rules go to, how much respect the assassins really have for this establishment and its rules. And it was kind of fascinating. You'll see dudes like getting ready to kill each other, and all of a sudden they're on Continental grounds, and they just have to dust themselves off and go have a drink at the bar and talk about their problems. Another element of world building that they put in this movie that was really cool was showing how many assassins actually live among us in the world of John Wick, and how many different assassins there are. There's some that are hiding as beggars, there's some that look like businessmen, there's some that are just regular Joes walking past you every single day. There's a scene where somebody calls for all of them to stop, and like 200 people just stop and just look at John Wick. I was almost expecting to see the camera pan over to Donald Sutherland. Let's talk a little bit about the stars of this film. Yes, once again, Keanu Reeves totally owns the role of John Wick. If you watch some of the videos on the training and the choreography that he has to go through for these kinds of movies, it will give you a whole new appreciation for this guy's acting. Keanu Reeves has never really been given a whole lot of credit in Hollywood. He's always been around, he's always been a recognizable name and a face, but he's always been kind of joked about as the best, worst actor out there. And I'll tell you what, he may not have a ton of emotional range, he's not exactly going to go out and win Oscar for Best Actor, but as far as an action star, Keanu Reeves deserves to be in the conversation with the greats. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Keanu Reeves. He is a part of that group now. He's going to be known for Neo, he's going to be known for Bill and Ted, but John Wick, I honestly believe, is going to be the role that he will be remembered for. Aside from Keanu Reeves, you got some of the side characters from the first John Wick coming back. You got Ian McShane, who is like the leader and the CEO of this Continental. He's great in his role. Always love seeing Ian McShane. John Leguizamo comes back as the auto detailer, and he has a great couple of scenes that he's in, and he brings a little bit of a comedic element into this movie too, which this movie also has over the first movie, is there's a lot more comedic moments. And like I alluded to earlier, for the first time since the Matrix trilogy wrapped up, you get to see Lawrence Fishburne and Keanu Reeves back on screen together, and their scenes were great. Lawrence Fishburne was a really cool, interesting character. I hope we get to see more of him in further sequels, because you know they're going to make a sequel to this. But the one guy that I really want to give a shout out to, because he's a guy that I feel like doesn't get quite enough credit for the roles that he does, is Common. I'm not a big fan of music artists or R&B artists or rap artists taking on roles in movies, because most times they're thrown in there with no acting experience, no acting skills, just for the recognizable name. You know, Texas Chainsaw starring Trey Songz. But Common is a damn good actor. He's got a really limited range of what he can do, just like Ice Cube, another great R&B star turned actor. But when he delivers, he is a badass character. He's just got this chill stare in his eyes where he's like silently confident that he knows he could probably fuck you up, but he's going to talk to you man to man. And I loved his character. He's another character that I hope we get to see more of, because the little bit of a dynamic that him and John Wick have in this mutual respect, but also a little bit of a rivalry, was fascinating. And their scenes together were probably my favorite scenes in the whole movie. Now, with all that being said, the amazing fight choreography and gun choreography yet again, the great world building and the expansion of the lore of the Continental, the great acting, the great characters, there are a couple of issues with this movie, but they're very small and there's not very many of them. The biggest one that stood out to me, honestly, is Ruby Rose. Now, she did okay in Orange is the New Black. I didn't get to see Triple X, but I heard she wasn't very good in that. In this movie, her acting's not necessarily bad, but her character just seems out of place in this movie. It seems forced. It seems like if you took her out completely, the movie would be exactly the same. They have this little gimmick where she can't speak, she's a mute, so she does the whole thing with sign language the whole movie, where she's silently telling John Wick she's gonna fuck him up later on in the movie. They set her up the whole movie like she's gonna have this epic showdown with John Wick whenever she finally gets to fight him, and she was no threat to John Wick whatsoever. Like, whenever he was done with her, I was like, what was the point of her character? And the only other small criticism that I have, that honestly if I watch this movie again I'll probably wipe out completely, is that the first half of this movie has a little bit more of a slower build up than the first one did. The first one just ramped right into the action, and this one has a little bit more of a slower pace while leading up to the action. But like I said earlier, when that first action scene hits, it is 100 miles an hour from that scene all the way to the end of the movie with very little downtime. So that totally makes up for it. So that, like I said, not really a huge criticism, just something that I did notice, that the first film probably has a little bit better over this one, was more of a steady pace throughout, but this one, the action scenes make up for it, people. So to wrap all this up, guys, even though I absolutely love John Wick, I'm going to go ahead and say it now, I think I love John Wick Chapter 2 even more. This is going to be a movie that's mentioned in conversation when people talk about great action sequels, because there's not too many of them. This is probably the best fight choreography I've seen since the first John Wick, and it's going to be hard for another action movie to top this movie so early in the year, going on through the rest of 2017. More mind-blowing action choreography, great world-building lore, and awesome performances and really cool, interesting characters leads John Wick Chapter 2 to be probably the best action sequel I've seen in years. So definitely go out to the theaters to check this thing out, but once it hits the shelves, go out and buy it. So what did you guys think of John Wick Chapter 2? Did you like it just as much as the first one? Better? Worse? Did you like the world, the character building that they did in this one? And do you think we're going to get a John Wick Chapter 3? Put all your thoughts on John Wick Chapter 2 down in the comment section below, and we'll talk about it. Please like and share this video and hit that subscribe button. That way you get to come back and see me next time. But if that's not soon enough to check out some more of my videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.